Okay, so I've mentioned a couple things in the past few days about following your cycle, your menstrual cycle, if we're in any way unclear about that. We're going to be talking about periods. If you don't want to hear about that, this video is not for you. It really resonated with a lot of people. A lot of you seemed interested. So I thought I'd hop on here and just give a basic overview. Some of the things I've learned recently, some of the ways that I've been implementing it in my life. I am not the expert on this. This is not my body of work or my area of study. If you want to know more, Lisa Lister is a great resource. Also, Do Less by Kate Northrup is one of the books that I've listened to on Audible because I don't have time to read or don't invest my time in reading a physical book anymore. If I want it to happen, I have to invest in it on Audible. That's the point I am at in my life right now. I'm a toddler. Shit happens. So anyway, we'll start with day one, which is day one of your period. This is the winter phase. So your body is going to want to rest, like the earth. Think of winter. For myself, if I rest on day one, I can recover so much more quickly. I used to have very, very painful periods when I was younger. My mother, who did not, was not very empathetic toward that. Was go to volleyball practice anyway. Movement will make you feel better. Go to school anyway. And I would be in the nurse's office begging her to let me stay more periods than I was allowed. You were allowed like one period plus lunch plus a study hall. And I was like, I cannot go back to class. The pain is so bad that I am throwing up. So needless to say, it was terrible for me. As soon as I found out that I could get the little implant in boot camp that would take away your period, that was actually a legit side effect. I was like, yes, please sign me up. I was tired of living with that. I was ready to be done with it. But I've had that for about 5 years on and off now, before and after having my daughter. And so I'm trying to get in touch with my cycle, respect my cycle now. And resting on day one is the most important thing to my body. There have been a couple times I've been using this mostly for about 8 months, since the early summer last year. 2 very memorable times that I could not rest on day one. I had overscheduled myself one time. The second time it was because I was working, so I slapped on one of those heat pads and went to work, and it's like, well, this is what you got to do. And it is. I understand a lot of people cannot live their entire life based around their cycle. You have to work 5 days a week. It's going to happen. Both of those times, the next month, which was this month, for me right now, was far more painful. So respecting it every single month pays off in the long run, because if I can't respect it one month, I know that I'm going to pay for it the next month. So moving on to spring, which is going to come after your cycle. Oh, also during the winter phase, that is a time that, women generally went into the tent or went away from society, things like that. Tends to be very introspective. Also can make it very easy to connect with the divine or the universe or whatever you believe in. It's time when we're able to receive that information and inspiration the best. So that's another benefit of going within and just being still and resting. So now moving on to spring. This is a time to really start planning. I don't try and jump in. Some people do. They get, their energy immediately starts to climb very quickly. It takes me a little while. I mean, today's like day 4 of my cycle, so I'm definitely climbing up on energy-wise, but I tend to let myself reintegrate a little more slowly. So this time, planning, creating ideas, any type of brainstorming is really great during this time in your cycle. Then when you get to summer, the next season is summer. That's when you're going to want to, your extrovert is really going to be out. If you're an extrovert, your fluctuations will probably be a little bit different for me. I'm an introvert, so winter, I very, very much want to seclude myself. Summer is a good time for networking events, doing videos, anything to be seen, to be out there, to connect with other people, to get your message out there. Especially if you're a small business person or, anything that requires you to interact with others and network and really put yourself out there, put your message out there. This is a really good time for that. That's when you're going to be the most eloquent, and the most extroverted, I guess. I feel like there was another word I'm looking for that's not coming to mind. So anyway, luteal phase is fall phase. This is actually one of the longest phases in this cycle. It can range from 10 to 14 days for people. And we're talking an average 28 days cycle. Some women may be a little bit longer. Some might be a little bit shorter. But yeah, out of 28 days, a 10 to 14 day chunk is definitely the longest portion. This is when you're going to be really detail oriented. You're going to want to finish things up that you've been planning. Bring it to fruition. Most recently, I planned my self-love yoga massage workshop during the very end of my luteal phase, my autumn phase, and it worked out perfectly. I mean, I didn't find a venue for my event until 8 days beforehand. And everyone's saying, oh, you need 4 to 6 days to market things and sell it to people, blah, blah, blah. Well, I had 8 days and I needed to get it done. And it was the perfect time in my cycle because that's when I am really at it, really doing it. I was able to sell 4 out of 5 seats in this at, much greater value than any previous workshop I had ever done. I was on it. I was on my marketing. And getting up there in front of the class during that phase in my cycle, I was still able enough to really get out there and talk to people and connect with people. And it was perfect. And then 2 days later, I started my period and I was like, whoo, thank God that is done. Because had I not scheduled that, if I were supposed to be teaching when I was on day 1 or 2 of my period, it would have taken everything out of me. But planning it for that luteal phase really allowed me to be at my best when I was doing that workshop. Another note on this, and this comes a lot from Do Less by Kate Northrup, is learning how to plan around the portion of your cycle that you're in. And I've started learning a little bit about Monday Hour 1 from Brooke Castillo's podcast, which I absolutely love. I'm sure you've heard me mention her podcast. It's amazing. She breaks everything down into super, super simple, actionable steps that anybody can use. Even though she is technically teaching other coaches, it is by far the easiest thing to follow for mindset shift that I've ever experienced. So I love her podcast. It's Brooke Castillo, the life coach school, sorry. She also has self-coaching scholars, which is her paid option. Anyway, so Monday Hour 1, you just brainstorm everything that needs to go on your to-do list, and then you put it on your calendar. And same thing that Kate Northrup is talking about on scheduling things with your cycle, putting it on your calendar. So the most important step with this is to look at that calendar, schedule the things that are of your highest priority. Schedule the things for yourself first. Schedule the things for your family first. And then whatever your priorities are, you go down the list. And then also scheduling it when it's going to be at the best point in your cycle. So if you are not a detail-oriented person and you need to look at your taxes or your bookkeeping or whatever in that month, schedule that during your luteal phase. That's when you're going to be the most detail-oriented. That's when you're going to have to expend the least amount of energy in order to do that thing. See, by working with the cycle, it allows us to do less, like her book says. So instead of fighting the phase that you're in, swimming upstream, you're going to schedule it at a time that's going to be most conducive to that activity, and therefore it will take a lot less energy. You'll be able to swim downstream because you're working with the way that your body is working. And in this day and age, we've been so conditioned in patriarchal structuring of time. A man's body works on a 24-hour cycle, and that is how our world has been conditioned. A woman's body works on a 28-day cycle, and it's just long enough that we don't realize that that's a thing. But it truly is, and if you start paying attention to it, start scheduling by it, even Kate Northrup says, even if you get like 25% of the things on your calendar scheduled appropriately according to this 28-day cycle, I mean, it's going to make your life so much easier. So I really hope that this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to talk more about it with you. So